All right, so we are back and diving right into it with another deep dive.
Absolutely.
And today we are going to be talking about the NBA playoffs.
Okay.
And we're getting down to the wire here. The regular season is winding down.
Yeah.
But we still got a lot to figure out.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of who's going to be in, who's going to be out.
Mm-hmm.
And even, once we know who is in.
Right.
There's a whole lot of jockeying for positions still to be done.
Absolutely.
So we've got, our trusty data set here.
Okay.
We're looking at current standings. We're looking at potential playoff brackets.
Right.
We've got all kinds of scenarios in front of us.
Yeah.
And really, I think what we want to do today is try to figure out, which of these teams that are sort of on the bubble, who could really make some noise.
Right.
And not just be, a participant in the playoffs, but maybe even,
Yeah.
make a run.
Right.
Pull off an upset.
It's what we want to see, right? Those Cinderella stories.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start with the East, I think.
Okay.
Maybe not quite as muddled as the West right now.
Right.
But still some really interesting races going on.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly, I'm looking at, you got the Heat, the Sixers, and the Pacers, all kind of bunched up together there.
Yeah, they're all right there.
All, fighting for either, to get into that top six,
Right.
avoid the play-in altogether.
You want to avoid that play-in if you can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an extra, hurdle you got to jump over.
Sure.
And, it's single elimination, so anything can happen.
Right.
So, having that top six spot just gives you that little bit more security.
Exactly. And potentially, you're looking at a slightly, easier first-round matchup if you can get that higher seed.
Right, exactly. You're playing a team that maybe is, hasn't been as good throughout the season.
Right.
So, there's a lot on the line there for those teams. Absolutely. And, what's interesting about that group is, you've got Indiana and Miami kind of head-to-head for that sixth spot.
Yeah, they're battling it out.
And then Philly's kind of lurking right behind them.
Yeah, you can't count out Philly. I mean, even with Embiid, coming back from injury.
Right.
They've got the talent to make a run.
For sure. And his health is going to be a huge.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's such a dominant player.
Right.
When he's healthy, he's, an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
So, if he can stay on the court, that changes everything for them.
And then a little bit further down, you've got the Bulls and the Hawks.
Yeah.
And, it looks like they're probably going to end up in that play-in.
Yeah, most likely.
But, looking at the data here, it doesn't seem like they're really poised to make a deep run.
Right.
It's one thing to win, a single game in the play-in.
Yeah, you can get hot for one game.
Exactly.
But to really make a run, you need that consistency.
And I think that's what we're not seeing from those two teams.
Okay, so let's shift gears and head out west.
Okay.
Because, as we said, it's really jam-packed right now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking a couple games separating 6th from 10th.
It's a tight race for sure.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, you've got teams like Phoenix and New Orleans.
Right.
We're kind of trying to hold on to those top 6 spots.
Exactly.
But then you got the Lakers and the Warriors right behind them.
Yeah, and those are not teams you want to see in the play-in.
No, absolutely not. I mean, those are both teams that have, championship experience.
Right.
They've got the star power.
Yep.
They know what it takes to win.
So, they're both obviously dangerous, but then you throw in the Rockets.
Oh, yeah.
They've been on fire lately.
10 wins in their last 12 games.
Yeah, I mean,
They're playing their best basketball at the right time.
Right.
And that's what you want to see.
So how about we just kind of go through some of these teams one by one.
Okay.
And really, break down their chances.
Sounds good.
Let's start with the Lakers.
Go.
Obviously you've got LeBron and AD. And when they're healthy, they're as good as anybody.
Right. They're a problem for any team.
Yeah, but, the health has been a bit of a question mark.
Yeah, they both had their share of injuries this season.
Right.
So, that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
And on top of that, they've got a really tough schedule down the stretch.
Brutal schedule.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing a lot of playoff teams. And, every game is going to be a battle.
Right. Every game is going to be like a playoff game for them.
Exactly. So they're going to have to really earn it.
Yeah, they're going to have to prove that they deserve to be in it.
Okay, so then we've got the Warriors.
Okay.
Still led by Steph.
The greatest shooter of all time.
Yeah, and looking at the numbers, he's still playing at an extremely high level.
Oh, yeah.
offensively. I mean, he can still carry a team.
He can score from anywhere on the court.
Right.
And he makes everyone around him better.
But the defense has been a bit of an issue.
Yeah, that's been their Achilles heel all season.
And specifically, it seems like, they're having trouble in the half court.
Right. They're not always getting those stops when they need them.
And then, they can be vulnerable to penetration, second chance points.
Yeah, they can get out-rebounded sometimes.
Right. So, it's definitely a concern.
It is a concern, but, they can also get hot from three.
Oh, yeah.
And when they're hitting their shots.
They're almost impossible to beat.
Almost impossible.
But, that's the thing with them.
Yeah.
It's kind of a boom or bust situation.
Right. They can go on these huge runs where they just can't miss.
Right.
But then they can also go cold.
And then, the defense can't always make up for it.
Right.
So it's, they're a very interesting team to watch.
Yeah, they're unpredictable.
Okay, and then finally the Rockets.
Okay.
As we said, they've been the hottest team in the league.
Yeah, they're on a roll.
And, a lot of that has to do with Jalen Green's improved play.
Yeah, he's been fantastic.
It seems like he's really starting to figure things out.
He's attacking the basket more. He's finishing better.
Right.
His shot selection has improved.
So, it's not just the jump shooting anymore.
Right. He's becoming a complete player.
Yeah. And that's making a huge difference for them.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, they're still on the outside looking in.
Right.
But if they can keep this up, I don't think anybody wants to see them in the play-in.
No way. They're a dangerous team.
So, let's say for the sake of argument that the season ended today.
Okay.
What are some of the potential first-round matchups that we're looking at?
Well, in the East, you could have the Celtics versus the Heat, which would be a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, that'd be a great series.
Absolutely.
The Heat, they've proven that they can hang with the Celtics.
Yeah, they're a tough matchup for anybody.
And then out west, potentially you could be looking at the Nuggets and the Lakers.
That would be a nightmare for Denver.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one.
I mean, the Lakers with LeBron and AD.
Right.
They just present so many problems for Denver.
Okay, so, the big question here is,
yeah,
we saw last year the Heat make a run to the finals as an 8th seed.
That's right.
Could we see something like that again this year?
It's possible.
And if so, who are the teams that you think could pull it off?
Well, I think you got to look at the Lakers and the Warriors. I mean, they both have the experience. They've been there before.
They've won championships.
Exactly.
They know what it takes.
They know how to win in the playoffs.
So, if either one of those teams can get hot at the right time, I think they could definitely make some noise.
They could definitely make a run.
All right, so to wrap things up here.
Okay.
It seems like we've got a really exciting finish to the regular season ahead of us.
Oh, yeah.
And then the play-in tournament itself is going to be must-see TV.
Absolutely.
So, I think we've covered a lot of ground here today.
We have.
But the big question for you, the listener, is, which of these bubble teams do you think has the best chance to not just make the playoffs, but to actually, make a run?
Right.
Who's going to be the Cinderella story?
That's the question.
And, what are the factors that you think are going to be most important?
Yeah.
Is it going to be star power? Is it going to be coaching? Is it going to be, just getting hot at the right time?
It's all going to play a role.
Yeah, so think about that. And we'll see how it all plays out.
Can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
It's going to be a great finish to the season.
All right, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.